Thank you for being here. We are in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 9 through 15 today. And again, it's going to be talking about women. Now, before we say we're talking about women, chapter 2, verses 1 through 8 was talking about, guess what? Men. And the men had, basically, we sum this up, two issues. They had false doctrine. There was false teaching going on and speculating. And when they got together as a group, they were arguing. They were fighting. There was anger. So the men have problems with false teaching, speculation, debating each other, raising fists, not instead of raising hands in prayer. Got fists. They're arguing and they're angry. That's what's taking place in the churches. Remember, the churches are meeting in homes. We can't think about, we can make application to the Western church, but we can't think that they're acting and functioning and organized like a Western church. They're meeting in homes. That's going to open up a few verses when we just have the word right here, homes. It is the church or the ecclesia, the assembly, but they're meeting, gathering together for their worship services, for prayer, for the exhortation, for teaching in homes. Now, in chapter 2, verses 9 through 15, we start talking about women. And, okay, here we go. This is, I tell you what, teaching this, I got this online from teaching it in 1995, 94, 95, 96. When I was teaching it there, and I can just feel a difference in approaching this topic of women now in our culture than back then. That's embarrassing to say because, you know, you're kind of walking on eggs. It's like I don't want to offend anybody because, you know, everybody has the right to do this. It's like, and now by this time it's like, okay, now 30 years later, I've seen, we are in the results of the 60s and 70s and the sexual revolution and women's rights, and women, they're just like men, they want to get in the workplace. And now we're on the flip side, and it's kind of like, I'm not near as intimidated in 2024 to just read these verses and say, suck it up, this is what it means. It's like, it's not me, it's Paul. And it's not Paul, it's Paul referring back to the original creation, the way God designed it. And in 1995, it was kind of like, well, the jury's kind of been out and made their decision. We've got problems in our culture where if women were following these directions, and again, this is not like, well, these are the verses that tell women to be silent. Just shut up and sit down. No, let's read the verses. That's not what it's saying. It's talking about men are out of place in Ephesus in 65 AD because they've got false teaching. It's leading instead of to Bible teaching and exhortation, building up the saints. They're tearing people apart. They're breaking apart entire households or churches because they're speculating and they're angry. Meanwhile, the women are showing up, joining these groups, and what we're going to see, they are self-promoting, and we're going to be talking, first thing is to talk about their dress and their hairstyle. And again, when we read those verses, it's not going to be talking about women can't look pretty, women can't take care of themselves. It's like, just like men can't, it doesn't mean men can't have a theological debate. I mean, we're going to have to get together and have iron sharpens iron. We're going to have theological discussions, and there may be, in a sense, arguing and debating, but it's not in anger and frustration and speculation. We're discussing the scriptures and we're growing. Women, the same way, self-promotion doesn't mean you can't dress up and look nice and take care of yourself. It means you're going to the extreme. You're going the other way. And this, you're self-promoting yourself with your looks instead of what Paul's going to say, good works. If you want to make yourself look attractive and you want to go out of your way to overdress, well, let's overdress in good works. And that the good works it's going to come to is it's interesting. It's going to come down to family. Again, this is you're rushing to the end. It's going to come down to where a woman is going to be assigned, what was her role, what was her place, and that is family. And then it's going to talk about, in the second part, is going to be her, besides self-promotion, is she's out of place. Because Paul's got to say, I do not let a woman have authority. A woman is not to come into the church and have authority over men. And then he's going to go back and use examples. He's got the last three verses, 13, 14, and 15, are Old Testament references with the ideal of, listen, it's very clear. I mean, Adam was formed first, and then the woman. I mean, we first have the leader, and then we have, her very purpose was the helpmate going to come alongside and help. So at what point does it make sense that now the woman is the leader and the man is the helpmate? It's like, and so that's the way it is in the home, in the family. But now when you come into the church, now it flips around. It's like it doesn't make sense with God's order. So the women are out of place. Then it goes back and starts talking about, interesting, childbirth. And we'll plow through those verses right there. So basic issue here is the women are self-promoting and they are out of place and not in line with where they're supposed to be. And thus, they're destroying the whole system. And the results are, he says, it's going to be evident to all who's out of place. In 2 Timothy, he's going to say, it's going to be clear. Who's not following this? Just watch. You can see the men who are still in false doctrine and the women who are still out of place. Let's just step back and watch. You see, that's where it ends up. And that's the difference between, for me, 1994 teaching 1 Timothy and 2024 teaching 1 Timothy. 1994 is like, I don't want to offend anybody. 2024 is like, okay, I should just waited. Look, see, there you are. We're in 2024. What is a woman? Plus we've got men who are trying to be women. I mean, these are our issues. We have university. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but it's like, I'm not afraid of saying something offensive because we've got universities that are letting men compete with women because they're so confused and they think they're so enlightened. We've got women who are beating themselves up in the workplace because you need a 2 and 3 income families need 2 or 3 incomes. Meanwhile, the children are being shipped off to daycares and abandoned and being raised in large groups. It's like there's a ton of women today that would exchange their careers to be able to stay home with a man working and her taking home, and it's going to say in the book, managing her own household. It doesn't say as the man's slave at home. No, the man is out doing this. The woman is in charge, managing her own household. But instead, they've sold out to this, the way it was designed to go out and pursue wanting to become a man because we're equal. It's like, no, you're not. Men and women are not equal. That's why we call them men and women, because they're two completely different beings. They're both humans. They both have rights, but men were designed by God in a certain way. Women were designed in a certain way. And when you follow this, it's going to work. And even within the church, these things are starting to unravel, and Paul is going to be addressing it. Now, again, right there, just with that introduction, you've already crossed 1,000 lines, and it's like, what's he saying? It's like, well, let's go ahead and see what we're saying. On the notes, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 9 through 15, I'm going to read through and just read the verse. I've got a lot of notes in between, but on page 1, it begins like this, chapter 2, verse 8. Paul says, I desire that in every place the men should pray, lifting holy hands without anger and quarreling. Again, he's picking on women. We've already spent time talking about the men. And it's you can criticize men, and everybody just kind of, puts up with it. It's like, don't even notice it. But as soon as you cross the line and say, well, now women aren't, it's like, whoa, don't touch the women. It's like, we've already addressed the men. Now, chapter 2, verse 9, likewise. We have some situations we want to correct with the women. Also, that women should, now I'm just going to read it without making comment, that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel with modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire. Okay, that seems simple enough, and we'll talk about it. Page 3, chapter 2, verse 10. But with what is proper for women who profess godliness, with good works. That's where instead of dressing up and trying to show off how beautiful you are, how rich you are, or drawing attention to your self-promotion, why don't you dress yourself up with good works? Why don't you just be a good woman? Chapter 2, verse 10, chapter 2, verse 11. Chapter 2, verse 11. Let women learn quietly with all submissiveness. Oh boy, we're going to look at that. But really, it's a positive statement because it says, let a woman learn. Again, you don't want to make too much out of it. But again, I'm making comment, and I said I wasn't. But when you look at that, let women learn, that is contrary to the ancient culture, contrary to Judaism. They would be, in the Jewish law, we'll talk about it more, they would need to know the things that they were required to follow, but they were not encouraged, they were not allowed, they were and sometimes forbidden to be taught about the deeper things of theology. You need to know these parts of the law, so do them. Now, disengage, this is for the men. For Paul, who's picking up Jesus' style, let the woman learn. And Jesus had women learning. You remember Mary and Martha's story. Jesus had women that were listening and learning from him, which is a huge statement. There, again, that's in Christianity. A woman cannot grow in the faith. She cannot grow in her knowledge. She cannot renew her mind unless she is learning like any person needs. You can't just separate and just say, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't know anything. The ideal is to grow. So first of all, let a woman learn. That's a positive statement. But it says two words, quietly, with all submissiveness. Again, that's putting her in a correct order, a correct place, which would give the impression they're breaking out of that. We're going to see that's exactly what's taking place. Chapter 2, verse 12, I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Now, the key phrase right there is over a man. He does not say, I do not let a woman teach, because that's going to be throughout the scriptures. You see women teaching. We're going to give you examples. Or to exercise authority. We just got in saying, let her manage her own house. It's like you've got authority in this realm. Where you cannot teach or have authority is over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. Now, again, the word quiet, your mind rushes, sit down and shut up. Okay, quiet is going to be a little more reflective than that harshness. Chapter 2, verse 12. Chapter 2, verse 13. And now here comes his reasoning. Now he goes right into the Old Testament. Why? Why would you say that? And remember, in Ephesus, they've got teachers, false teachers, that are wanting to be teachers of the law, but don't know what they're talking about. That's in 1 Timothy chapter 1. So Paul now goes to the Old Testament, and now he's going to use Old Testament appropriately, contrary to what the false teachers are doing. And why would he say, okay, what he just said, I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority over man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. And it's like, why? Well, because Paul just hates women. No. He doesn't say because I hate women. He says for or because Adam was formed first and then Eve. I mean, you can do what you want. You can embrace evolution. You can embrace progressive Christianity. You can embrace postmodernism and say, well, it doesn't even matter. In Paul's world and in reality, God made one man, Adam, and then from him, out of his side, he took a rib and made Eve and gave her to the man as a helpmate. This person is different than this person. Not just different people, but this was a role that he was to play, and Eve was created for, well, you can sense he makes a big deal about it. Adam named all the animals, and there's no suitable helpmate for him. There's no one that could accompany him in what God had planned for him. He needs the second part. He needs a woman. And now there's the role, and now you've got this unit, man and a woman. It's like, there we go. This is going to work. That's what we're talking about. And if you want to go, again, say, I believe in evolution. Well, I don't. But some people say, but that's a collapsing theory. It's falling apart. Postmodernism. Look where we're heading. We're heading into lawlessness. We don't even know if a woman who is genetically a woman, if she's really a woman, because we've got to wait and see how she feels. It's like, that's flat out stupid. It's like, that's not even intelligent. That's what I mean. 1994 or 95, I'm teaching the same verse. I'm like, well, be careful. Well, now it's like, okay, I'm just going to trample on all your thoughts because it's manifested the fruit of stupidity. Woman was created to be a helpmate for the man. Man was created to be in this position of making these decisions, of being some kind of a ruler over God's creation. He had the authority, and woman came along, was made just like him. You know, that old saying, she didn't come from his head so she could rule, or out of his feet so he could walk on her, but from his side. So in a sense, they're equals, but they've got different roles. Okay, especially when they get married and they form a marriage union. Okay, nonetheless, the whole point for saying that, this is what Paul's basing his argument on, is these verses. It's only 6 words, 1, 2, 3 in the Greek. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words in the Greek. Why are you saying this, Paul? For Adam was formed first, then Eve. End argument. It's like, well, I don't understand. Priority, the helpmate. This is the role. This is the helpmate. Now, if you are really a man and you are really a woman, when you line up like this, you're going to be, what that word everybody wants? You're going to be happy. Because this is what you're created. It's like, but the fish wants to be a bird. They're not very happy, keep falling out of the sky. It's like, what's wrong? I just want to be a bird, but I'm a fish. Well, I tell you what, swim in the water, fishy. Oh, this is so much better. Right, because that's where you were designed to be. And the same thing, this, again, man is sinful, all men. Woman is sinful, all women. So just because I draw this diagram and say, there, it's going to work out perfectly, you're still dealing with 2 sin creatures. You're living in a fallen world, and you are constantly under satanic attack and deception. So you're going to have to continue to advance and follow God to make this work. This is not like, oh, you do this, oh, we have no problems. It's like, no, you're still going to have problems here on this side of eternity. But if you switch this around, and put Eve up here and Adam, it's like, okay, you haven't even, it's like plugging something into a dead outlet or turning, I'm trying to think of some example off the top of my head. I mean, you've just reversed the parts. You're putting gasoline in the water cooler or something. It's like, okay, that's what I said. I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head, so something stupid's going to come out. Okay. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And now, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. So now when he says right here, Adam, God did this, and then right here, what was the first problem? Eve was deceived. Someone came to her and gave her false information. And she goes, okay, that sounds good. So the false information came to the woman who agreed with it, and then this false information, what caused now you go to Romans, who is to blame for sin? When Adam sinned, sin came into the world. If you push it, sin didn't enter the world when Eve sinned, sin entered the world when Adam ate the fruit. But the false doctrine came in through the woman, who then takes the false teaching and advanced it to the man, and all chaos broke loose. So the point right here, Adam wasn't deceived. He should be doing the teaching. It was the woman who was deceived, and when the man listened to the woman's teaching, all chaos broke loose. Now again, I just read it to you again. For Adam was formed first, and then Eve. And in this setting, Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. So she is the one who introduced this, because she went out and got false doctrine, and she began to convince Adam, hey, Adam, here's what we should do. You should try the fruit. And Adam should have said, like a man, no.